Hi, it's Scott MacArthur here, and thanks very much for tuning in to my first ever live lunch and learn. I decided to do this because, well, I just wanted to do something different today. I was going to show you a video as I normally do on a Friday afternoon, but I thought, oh, go live. So it's been an interesting morning for me. You probably see I'm wearing my, I've got my merch on. What's it? I will get back to that on, and I'm wearing my lab coat because I've been doing a video. I won't tell you what it's about, but it's quite funny. I hope it's funny. So I've been doing that. So I'm still in the middle of that. And I'm in the middle of homeschooling. So I've only got one PC. And normally you need two when you stream, so that I can see who's doing the chat. So if you are chatting and I don't know who you are, I'll let you know, and you can stick your name in and let me know who you are if you do send me a hello. So what I'm going to do today, it's not going to be long, probably 20 minutes. But I'm going to a few things I'd like to talk to you about. Let me just make sure that things are working. Yeah, they are. They're working fine. So the other thing, I mean, it's homeschooling for those of us that are doing it is, well, it's a pleasure, but it's also a bit of a challenge. At least I'm finding it a bit of a challenge because the school day tends to be packed into early morning up to lunchtime, and then they do sort of exercise in the afternoon. But it means your whole morning is fragmented, so it's tricky, and it's a good test for workload planning, and I'm not very good at it. So anyway, so this week, well, I've been thinking a lot about language this week. I think it came from a conversation I had with Ben Afia, who's one of my colleagues in the speaking circuit. Hi, Ben, if you're there. And we were just talking about words generally and about how important they are. He comes at the world of transformation from the sort of the word usage angle. I come at it largely from the storytelling angle. So we have quite a lot in common, actually, in terms of our objectives. And as you know, if you watch my storytelling show, I believe that stories are really important because not only do they help us understand each other, they create what I think is really missing today, and that is empathy. Stories can act as an empathy engine. And one of the things that we were touching on was the use of words and how that evolves. And that was a good conversation, as it always is with Ben. And then the week went on. And then one of my other colleagues, and he's a dear friend, Julian Burton. Hi, Julian, if you're there. And I think we've spoken 3 times this week. And we tend to speak, sometimes we speak past one another. Sometimes I get too annoyed and get grumpy because I get that way. But most of the time we have really good conversations. And this week, we've been talking mainly about, how do we, what are the problems that people who work in transformation, project management, HR, what are the problems that they face at the moment? And we had this sort of chat yesterday about, it's a bit like, we were all on this big ship, and unfortunately, because of COVID, the ship is having difficulty. Many of us are in lifeboats, and indeed many of those lifeboats have got holes in them. So we're all trying to, cover up the holes in the lifeboats to try and survive. So the idea that anybody's problem at the moment is long-term thinking or strategy even is an interesting one, and I don't think many people are doing that. So it means things have got to get practical, and that's what we're working on, and we'll hear more about that in the next few days, I hope, because we're quite keen to get people involved. But one of the things that came out of that was that Julian sent me this image. Let me just show you this image. Now, this is from some work he's been doing with a colleague of his, Caitlin Walker, who is a fascinating person in her own right. And what this is about is, how do people respond to stress? Now, we're all experiencing stress of different types at the moment. I mean, the lucky ones are stressed because they've got so much work on, but most of us normal mortals are stressed because we're balancing, as I said, homeschooling with trying to generate work in a difficult environment. And this picture, and Julian drew this. Julian is a wonderful strategic artist. And he goes through sort of 4 different things. He says, under stress, some people, they break, so they're fragile. Some people are unmoved, so they're robust. Some people bounce back, therefore they are resilient. And some people grow. And then this little phrase came up, anti-fragile. Now, this comes from the work of Nassim Taleb, who many of you will have come across. And this is the definition that Taleb gives to this phrase, anti-fragility. Anti-fragility goes beyond robustness. It means that something does not merely withstand a shock, but actually improves because of it. Now, I quite like that in terms of the definition, but like Julian, and actually Julian and I had a brief chat about this, I'm not sure that anti-fragility is a way I want to describe myself. And this has come up in my life a number of times because, defining yourself as something that you are not I think, is quite odd. Now, the first one that came to mind for me, and it's been one that I've struggled with all my life, is the fact that some people define me as an atheist because I don't believe in any one of the 3,000 gods. An anti-theist, you don't believe in God. Now, I don't want to be defined as something that I'm not. It's a bit like saying I'm an anti-accountant. I'm an anti. Well, maybe I'm an anti-accountant. No, but it's an odd way when you think about it of defining oneself. And I'm slightly uncomfortable. I'm even quite uncomfortable with some of the material in the media just now, like being an anti-racist. The language, I don't think it helps. No, do I know the answer? I don't know the answer, but I'd love to know your feelings on this. But it's a bit like saying, I'm an anti-paedophile. Well, of course I am, but I don't label myself as an anti-paedophile. It seems to me slightly odd that we use these anti-words all the time. And I think we need to exercise an imagination, because if you go back, let me just double check something, double check the chat's working. Yeah, it's working fine. If you go back to when I said about atheism and being, anti-theist, I'm not anti-theist because I actually am very much influenced by a lot. Who wouldn't be influenced by the sides? If you look at people of faith who have an influence in my life, you've got Gandhi, you've got some of the great philosophers like Aristotle. You've got some of the great contemporary thinkers like the chief rabbi who just died recently. I would be an idiot to be anti them because they believe in something that I don't believe in. And in fact, I had a chat with one of my other speaking colleagues, Michelle Mills Porter, last week about she has a relationship that she's working through about how spirituality has impacted her life. And, again, I'm not too sure what spirituality is, but I'm not anti-spirituality. I welcome the discussion that we had together last week. In fact, it was a lovely discussion. And okay, I have every right to say I don't agree with that, and I think it's woo-woo. But she's got every right to say to me, "Hold on, I think there's utility in this." So I think we need to be a lot more careful with words like that. So have a think about it. The one that I'm really struggling with is this anti-racism label. People are saying you've got to be anti-racist, and that means you've got to take action. And I agree with that. But I'm not sure I like being labelled as anti anything. So anyway, maybe I'm overthinking this, which is quite possible. Wouldn't be the first time. But I would like a debate to happen about this. I'd like a lot more discussion about it, because we know that the way words are used can really change the world. And as I say at the end of my Artifact show every week, gather your own stories, because those stories could change the world. And the words within those stories are the same. So ante, yeah, let's see if we can up the ante a little bit. I know I've played on words a little bit there, but I think it would be valuable to have a think about it. So let me just see if anybody's saying hello there. No, there's nobody there. There's a few people watching, which is nice. Thank you. Now, the other thing I'd like to talk about, now there's a couple of other conversations I had this week that I think are important. Remember, this is called Lunch and Learn. And one of the things, now, I'm sorry if you're a regular, well, I'm not sorry. One of the things I really love is poetry. And I think poetry enables us to see inside, enables us to actually understand more about what we are like. But in today's environment, there's one particular poet who I get an awful lot from, and his name is David Whyte. Now, maybe 2 years ago, if anyone who's watching was there, let me know, because my brain is one of the things I seem to be very good at the moment is forgetting things. But a couple of years ago, I was sat in a Cotswold hotel. I live in the Cotswolds, and I was sat in one of it was just a little boutique hotel with David Whyte. And we'd had an afternoon and a dinner with David. There was about 10 of us, including another great poet, Adrian Scott, who's a lovely man. And again, a former priest. So again, and he's a friend of mine, and I really value him. So I'm not anti him, you know. Well, anyway, and they'd all gone to bed, and I was sat at the fire with a huge glass, probably a bucket of red wine, and David White. And we started to talk about all sorts of stuff about, well, I'll have to be honest, mainly about how we could maybe, use poetry in the corporate world. I mean, he's done some work with Boeing and a couple of other things. But obviously, I've done a lot with my keynotes using poetry, but there's still a lot more room for improvement there. But there's a particular poem. I was talking to Paul Crick about it, another one of my colleagues, yesterday, and I'm going to play it. Now, I make no excuses for this. I think this is a beautiful piece of poetry, and it's what I call generative. It's generative. Something happens in your mind when you hear this poem. So let me play this. This is by David White, and then we'll have a quick chat about it. It doesn't seem to want to play. That's a bit odd. It's very odd. Why is it not playing? I'll tell you, I've got a plan B here. There's always a plan B. Sometimes when the software doesn't work, you have to think on your feet. So let's think on my feet, and let's play it from here. Could not support playback. It's not working. Ah, well, I can't do it then. If I can't do it through, I know what I can do. I can let you hear it. I can let you hear it. Let me just do something else. This is one of the great challenges when you're on lives. It's sometimes I did test this. It should work, but it doesn't. So let me just see if I can get it on. I know where it is. You'll hear a little bit of music here. There it is. Right, let me play you this, and we'll have a listen to it together.
The pale ground. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing, close in, the step you don't want to take. Start with the ground you know, the pale ground beneath your feet, your own way to begin the conversation. Start with your own question, Give up on other people's questions. Don't let them smother something simple to hear another's voice. Follow your own voice. Wait until that voice becomes a private ear that can really listen to another. Start right now. Take a small step you can call your own. Don't follow someone else's heroics. Be humble and focused. Start close in. Don't mistake that other for your own. Don't mistake that other for your own. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing, close in, the step you don't want to take. Start with the ground you know, the pale ground beneath your feet, your own way to begin the conversation. Start with your own question, Give up on other people's questions. Don't let them smother something simple to hear another's voice. Follow your own voice. Wait until that voice becomes a private ear that can really listen to another. Start right now. Take a small step you can call your own. Don't follow someone else's heroics. Be humble and focused. Start close in. Don't mistake that other for your own. Don't mistake that other for your own. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing, close in, the step you don't want to take.
So that was David White, and that was the poem. Let me just get back onto the stream. Wasn't that interesting how that failed? Restream is quite interesting. I was onto them this morning. A bunch of kids. It's interesting developing alongside them though, and they're very responsive. So good for them. That's another little problem I need to report later on about video. So that was the poem that Paul Crick and I touched on. And I mentioned earlier, I was sat in this little Cotswold hotel listening to David talk, and we got to that poem. Now, some of the words, like to start close in with the step you don't want to take, that's immediately resonant with me, because in the past I've put personal blocks up about doing things, and I gradually learned that the best way for me, and this is not for everybody, but the best way for me is just to get on with things. If I don't, I procrastinate. I mean, I got it's really terrible. I got a book deal with Bloomsbury to write a book called The HR Paradox. And in that book, I was going to talk about all the things in HR that they use as tools and techniques, and the fact that many of those tools and techniques are mythological, despite the fact, in other words, they don't work really, despite the fact that HR is trying to become a more seriously taken profession. So it's a very interesting idea. But I sat in another hotel, actually like a bed and breakfast in the Lake District, for a month, and I wrote 140,000 words, but they were all in the wrong order because it made no sense. I'd turned academic. I just dove into the subject to such a level of detail that it was worthless. So when I do write the book, I don't want to get too deep. I don't want to go too far. I just want to write as Scott. I want to tell my stories rather than going too deep. And what I should have done was just go on with it back then, rather than worrying about it. Because every time I wrote something down, I went, I need to explain, where did the job description come from? Right, let me research the job description. And I did, and we ended up in America, and it was about trains and cauliflower. And yeah, we don't need to go there. But I think that's a beautiful piece of poetry, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm sorry if you couldn't hear it brilliantly. I think you could hear it, but it's a piece of poetry that I find every now and again, and that particular version of it, with the beautiful piano in the background, is well worth thinking about. So I hope you found that interesting. I promised it would be short. Other things that are going on this week. Well, what have I been doing? Well, it's a big weekend this weekend for rugby fans, because the Six Nations is back. So I'm quite looking forward to that. And I'm thinking about, I'm going to do a call with some friends of mine, some systems engineers. We're going to get together and we're going to do a sort of Zoom call with a few cans of beer, no doubt, and the rugby on. So I'm looking forward to that. What else is happening? I've got really deep into late night sort of insomniac listening to 1950s sci-fi. So I've been doing a lot of that. So I'm really enjoying that. And if you're interested in that, I've been posting it on my Facebook page, which is really interesting, I think, because folk are coming back and saying, "Oh, I haven't heard of that story about the Day of the Triffids, the Night of the Triffids." One of them, there's a version of that was on. It's excellent. So I've been doing that. But apart from that, I think the forest is calling. So thanks very much. Oh, there's a couple of things here. I better just. Nora, yes, it was David White. David is fantastic. Not only is he a wonderful poet, he's also a great narrator. His voice is so sonorous. He's got this. He says he's got an accent that's sort of midway between Ireland and America, and he's right. I love it. I love his voice. It's very, very powerful. And here's another comment. Hi, Joe. Thanks for coming on. Start close in. With the step you don't want to take comes into my mind when I am fearful of doing something new. Brill, yeah, it is lovely, and I often have it like you, Joanne. I often have it in my brain, that poem. I mean, I can recite most of it now because I've heard it so many times. But isn't it glorious? The other thing that I didn't mention actually before I finish, and I promise I'll be gone in a few seconds. But before I finish, I asked David about that poem, and I said, "What's it about?" And he laughed and he said, "I don't always know what it's about." And I think that's one of the other things that's terrific about poetry, because, even good poetry that sounds good, because there's this relationship between the words and the sound, they're not always as clear as people think. And he said, "I don't really understand it myself sometimes." And I loved that, because, we're always trying, I know the answer to this, and I know whatever. And David's not like that. And I really appreciate that. So thanks for coming on. Tonight I've got my live broadcast over on my Facebook page and on my YouTube channel, all about the Glasgow Polo with my great friend Andy Muir. That's always exciting. If you like rock music or pop music, come across. It is a bit Glaswegian though, so you can imagine the humour's quite interesting. And we've got 9,000 people on our Facebook group now, so that's quite a hilarious carry on. Last week, the after show Zoom went on from 10:30 till 2:30 in the morning. Oh, so anyway, it's a great way of getting guys and girls together to have a chat. So if you fancied that, you're more than welcome. It's all over the socials. So thanks very much. I'll see you on Tuesday when I have my next edition of Artifact Live, episode 23. And I'm going to be joined by a comedian. So it's well worth tuning in. Jeremy is fantastic. And we'll have a really good chat about how story and comedy go well together. So thank you very much, and I'll see you on Tuesday. Hopefully this little video will work.